Looks like everybody's on this side. Yeah. Okay, let's begin. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Strategic Transformation Town Hall. This is the second town hall. The first was September 23rd. As you remember, that's when we launched it. I want to also recognize in the first row, in these two segments, we have members of the ITAC and the steering committee. Want to recognize their work, engagement, insights on this very important project. Right behind me are the chairs, co-chairs of the ITAC and steering committee, as well as the two Huron presenters who will share the platform with me. So this will be a joint presentation with me and the two Huron presenters. I also want to acknowledge that there are two additional Huron folks with us, and one of them is a UM-Flint graduate. Rob, please stand up. So there you are. So Jonathan, I'm biased towards UM-Flint. It's okay, right? But the Huron presenters will introduce themselves, so I'll save that time. It's important for me to acknowledge that this transformation for many of us, I think for all of us, is stressful. It is giving us a lot of anxiety, and I acknowledge that. I think the president and the regents also are fully aware, even if this were a strategic planning project, it would be stressful for many. And this one is, the process is similar to strategic planning, but it is a transformation of the institution. So that makes it probably more stressful for many. But look, folks, we have to do this. We have to do this. The university is committed to doing it in the best possible way, being transparent, sharing information in a timely manner when we have that information ready to share, like today. And we will collectively, as an institution, do what it takes to strengthen this university for the future. That is the goal of the transformation, and that is what we hope to achieve. So I just wanted everyone to know that one of the things, I've had several people, and I'm very pleased, faculty, staff, and students, come to my office hours. And I've said to them that, look, the best thing we all can do is avoid filling the information gaps with misinformation or hearsay. And I say that to you. This is a long process. This is a complicated process. This process will take time, and information will be shared when we are confident of what we are sharing. Prior to that, please do not jump into any conclusions about what is to happen. No decisions have been made. I cannot overemphasize this. And the decisions that we will make will be based on data, part of which you will hear today, context, and collective understanding of where this institution needs to be in the years to come. So, the objective of the presentation This morning, we want to give you a status update as to where we are in the process. And we will do so by sharing two very important pieces of information. A summary of stakeholder engagement, which has been going very well. Many of you probably have had the chance to engage directly. Not all of you, I understand. It's a large institution. Not everyone can get a face-to-face. But please understand, there is a website. There is a way by which you can submit your questions, your ideas, your insights. And let me assure you, each and every one is read. It is truly read. And we update the FAQs based on what we think the community needs to know. So if you haven't had a chance to be in a focus group or be in a one-on-one with the people, please don't think your ideas are not important. They are important. Please submit them, and we will take them into consideration. So the two pieces of information that we are going to share with you this morning is the stakeholder engagement, which is still not fully complete. It has been shared with the ITAC and steering committee members, but their discussions still need to happen. But because it's the end of the year, we wanted to share with you the progress. We are going to give you that information. And the other piece is the market analysis. That is complete. And the market analysis also has been shared with the steering committee and the ITAC. Their feedback has been received. And the feedback that we received, either through ITAC or through the website, will be incorporated. So, work to date. As I said, there are three buckets, three pieces of work. One is the community engagement. So we have engaged with the community through focus groups, through interviews, through town halls, through office hours, through emails, and we are synthesizing that information. And today we will share a high-level summary of that information. You will also hear the magnitude of engagement that has happened so far, but it is still ongoing. I want you to understand it is not fully complete, but it has been shared with the ITAC and the steering committee. The second piece in blue in the middle is the market analysis, and that's what I said is complete, has been shared with ITAC and steering committee. Their feedback has been received and is incorporated or will be incorporated, and that is the final piece of work on the market analysis. And the third is program economics. That work is continuing, but that information has just been shared with the ITAC and steering committee. However, their feedback has not yet been received, and it is on the timeline. When we receive that feedback, that will be incorporated. So there is a lot of data in that program economics piece, but what the ITAC and the steering committee will do is point out Flint-based contexts or program-based contexts or college-based contexts, and that will be incorporated, and they will have a discussion with the steering committee and ITAC, and then we will consider that complete. It is not complete yet. Okay, you have seen this slide before, but it's a more simplified slide now. The process is like any strategic planning process. So the information and data that is being collected through stakeholder engagement, market analysis, and the program economics is being fed to ITAC and steering committee. ITAC, as you know, is a faculty committee. Steering committee are deans and vice chancellors. These two groups have different perspectives. Faculty have information on the ground that needs to be considered. Deans have information on a broader scale, at a higher level, which also needs to be considered. So, putting these things together, when we have done that, that's when we say it is complete. That will then come to me, and then from me, it will go to the president and to the region. So that's the overall simplified chart. But I think it's important for me to point out something important compared to this chart you saw in September 23rd. Late October, early November, we made some changes. It's appropriate to make the changes in the people who were directly involved with the process. So if you remember, Tim Slaughter, former CFO of Ann Arbor, was an advisor. He's no longer. The CFO's office in Ann Arbor was deeply engaged. They are no longer. And that is appropriate because after framing the project, looking at the broader parameters, now it is, and has been for a while, a completely Flint process. People who are involved in data gathering, the two pieces of important information about programs, institutional analysis, Fawn is here, and on the financial side, Jerry is here. So they get all the information about this institution from these two sources and through the engagement with the community members. So this is a change I want you to understand. It is completely Flint, assisted by Huron. And also, I have said to the ITAC and the steering committee that I'm not a part of ITAC or the steering committee. So I let them work on their own. Only if they invite me, I attend. So I want the steering committee and the ITAC to consider any and all issues and come to their final decisions of what to submit as feedback. Okay, I had also said to all of you that this process will not be rushed, okay? We have to get it right. And that is a subjective term, I understand. But because we are where we are, if you look at President Coleman's charge letter, we should have been done by now. Well, we are not. And we are not going to rush it. So after consultations with the board and the president, I have changed the timeline. So now you see a new timeline on the slide that says we will most likely complete this work in the first quarter of 23. And this is important that we want to share the information that we are receiving. We want to have town halls. So ITAC and steering committee and each college and school is different. They will share information that they are receiving in the way that is appropriate for their college and school culture, okay? So for example, I was asked, who selected the focus groups? Well, so let me answer it. I requested the deans and the unit heads, and I said, through a process that is appropriate for your school and college, and give me names of people who span the entire spectrum, okay? So folks who might be vocally supportive or vocally non-supportive, that's absolutely fine. So that's how the focus groups were made. Some wanted a college town hall. That was also organized. And I want you to know that if there is any group here that is really, really interested in a one-on-one or another focus group or a town hall, you let us know. But you also understand, for those in the social sciences, in the survey research, you get a saturation at some point. And that is like 7 to 8 focus groups. After that, you keep hearing the same thing. However, that's not a decision that we want to make. If you so feel, then let us know. We will definitely organize more focus groups or town halls in schools and colleges. Okay, so that's the new timeline. As you can see, I have pushed it back by a quarter. We hope that by the first quarter of next year, this work will be complete, and then again we'll share it with you. Yesterday was the Regents meeting. I shared exactly what you're going to hear now with the Regents and the President. So they are also aware of where we are, what the next steps are. So let me end here, and now let me invite Gina Flynn from Huron to speak about the engagement. Gina?
Good morning. Okay, well, now that we've already gotten a response, let me pause. We are Michigan. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's really great to be here, especially to talk about engagement. For me, for a couple of reasons. So personally, yes, I'm a consultant with Huron now, but prior to that, spent about 20 years in higher education. And I like to start my discussions off by saying most importantly in that career was my time at Michigan. So I'm an alum, I was an instructor in political science, I'm a native of Ann Arbor, and I was also on staff at a couple of times in Ann Arbor. I know that that's not Flint, but having been on campus and having been engaged with all of the engagement that I'm about to describe, one thing that is clear is that the environment and the enthusiasm for this campus is tremendous. So it's a pleasure for me to be here talking to you about what has taken place. This first slide shows you the extent of the engagement that has taken place to date. The Chancellor just said that it's still ongoing, and I actually see quite a few faces in the room of people that I've had the pleasure to speak with. But as he said, we're still engaging opportunities to talk with people. So if there are additional requests, let us know. One piece of that expanded timeline really shows the fact that we are still continuing to make sure that all of the input that we're getting is infused into the process and the synthesis that's taking place. So we're happy to keep having more engagement. As you see on the slide, surveys gave us over 1,000 responses from various constituent groups. We've had a town hall. We've received hundreds of pieces of input via the web form or emails. I would love to be able to tell you exactly who submitted all those, but as you know, there's the ability to submit things anonymously. So whichever way you're comfortable in giving us information, we want to receive that. In addition to those particular interactions, I want to highlight the fact that we've spoken to a broad base of constituents. So we've spoken to students directly, some of whom I see here, faculty, staff, alumni, community members. So it's really important for us to be able to hear the concerns and the ideas from a broad base of people that represent UM-Flint. What we still have to come are a couple more focus groups. So as we've gone through this iterative process of engagement, we've taken in the feedback that we're hearing. We want to hear from more students. We want to hear from more faculty. We want to hear from more employers on what the opportunities are for employment post-graduation. So we've expanded the reach of people that we're hearing from, and we'll continue to do that as necessary. What I'm going to do is walk through high-level takeaways of what we've heard from each of those constituent groups, and really pay attention to some of the things that you're seeing on the screen. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but what we're seeing on the screen, because you'll start to see very clear trends. And one thing that we've said to each of the people that we've spoken to was that that's really the goal, is to find out what it is that people want for UM-Flint, what would make it the most successful place for graduates, what would make it the most welcoming place for faculty and staff, and how can we connect to the community more. So you'll notice very clear themes as we move through. So from the students. Students love being at UM-Flint, and that was clear from everyone we spoke to. Some may have started here with the anticipation that they would transfer and found opportunities that were so engaging, found leadership opportunities, found interactions with faculty in their courses, highlighted the engaging learning pedagogy, the fact that there's hands-on opportunities, internship opportunities, and they've decided to stay. Even though they may have had some initial, thoughts to leave. They don't want to. They want to stay at UM-Flint. And when they talk about opportunities for investment and growing, they really talk about expanding those internship and hands-on opportunities. They talk about making sure that people know the story of the institution. So make sure that the people across the country, people in K-8 or high school situations or settings understand what they will get if they come to UM-Flint, and that would be most attractive. I will also let you know that the students tell a very compelling story. So if you stop and talk to people about why you're here and what keeps you here, it's a very clear picture given. We've also talked about this particular process. And the students wanted us to speak with more students. They said, it's great that you're talking with student government. How can you reach more? So we reached out to additional students to participate. Again, I will echo the Chancellor's comments that if there are even more opportunities to engage with more students, let us know, or encourage your colleagues or friends, peers, to participate in the process in the ways that work best for them. Even being here today on the last day of classes, I know is a heavy lift, but it's good to see so many faces here. Faculty and staff. I will say that there was a compelling story told about the need to tell the highlights of the institution, the need to highlight the research, the innovative programs that have been developed, the connection to the community that's happening mostly on the part of individual programs and individual faculty, and how we can more formalize those outreach opportunities so that more people can take part in them. But there was a really strong story, consistent story, about understanding what the UM-Flint story is, what makes this institution unique, how it's also tied to University of Michigan system, all of the campuses, how they're all tied together, and then use that in an effective way to draw people in. It seems to come across that UM-Flint's a hidden gem. And I'm seeing lots of nods now. It's a hidden gem, and the story needs to be told. And so I think the more that we know what those individual programs are, what those outreach opportunities have been, what the relationships have been with particular institutions, organizations, the cultural center of Flint, all of that should be packaged in a way that really highlights the talents and the efforts that are happening on this campus. It probably isn't a surprise to anyone that marketing is one thing that you'll start to see consistently across the takeaways from the engagement. It all goes back to telling that story, but doing it in a way that's effective and reaches beyond the boundaries of campus. And then finally, thinking through the areas of growth that are possible. So what are we already doing that could be built upon? What areas of technology or healthcare, innovation can be built upon so that you're attracting students to study in the areas that they want to study in? It's not necessarily about always cutting or developing brand new things. And this is, coming from faculty and staff. Those are possibilities, right? Adjusting, refining, revising. But also, how do you build up what we're already doing well to attract more people to those particular areas? So again, as I said, you're starting to see a couple of themes, a lot about story, a lot about community, a lot about the engagement that's possible from UM-Flint. Employers. So employers, once again, highlighted the experiential learning opportunities. One thing that's very interesting is if you look at the industries or the cultural organizations that are in Flint currently, the opportunity for students to come here and not just learn in the classroom, but take that learning outside of the classroom and really capitalize on the relationships that have been built between faculty and leaders at this institution with community and employer leaders is really where an opportunity lies. So in order to build upon that, people have highlighted the need to have more formal links between these organizations and institutions that serve as employers and individuals at the institution. Right now, what we're hearing is a lot of that happens between from one-on-one relationships that have been built over time. And so, some of the effects of that is if someone leaves the institution, then that relationship can go with them. So thinking about how there are direct contacts and how employers can lean on the institution to know where arrangements and relationships can be built. High demand occupations, and Nick will talk a bit more about this when he gets into the market analysis, but it's consistent that tech skills and health skills, allied health fields, really are demanding graduates and new employees for their positions. But it's not only about the tech. They also highlighted soft skills. So the critical thinking, the relationship building. And so if you think about that as an institution, being able to draw on both of those sides and provide students the experience and the training and the learning opportunities in order to build up the skills that now we know or we've heard from employers that they want to hear or they want to receive. And then Flint community. So if you were at the September town hall, there's a very strong message, and I think a very compelling message stated by many community members about wanting to have a stronger presence in Flint, in the Flint city and the region as well, that once off of the campus grounds, it's not as evident that University of Michigan is here. And so that's something that we continue to hear. They want more engagement that's formalized, and I think as we think about how to invest in areas and how we can strengthen those connections, then that's one area that the community would really appreciate. The cultural center also was a consistent message that we heard about. And I'll be honest, just having spent a little bit of time in Flint and the area, again, back to that point about it being a hidden gem. So the more that we know about the Science Center and the art and music scene and the library, which I heard is fantastic, and then being present so that people know, okay, you're in Flint and you're also amongst the great community of UM-Flint. So we heard a lot from the community about wanting to formalize those areas. And I know that we don't have a ton of time to go through lots of points. We still have a lot of information to go. All of this information will be posted so that you can dig a little deeper into it on your own time. This is where we got a lot of information from people. Continue to submit information via the web form, but we've gotten a lot of feedback that's consistent with what we've heard. In terms of academic programs, people are worried about the liberal arts. This is not surprising to anyone, I don't think. And as we just heard from the employer saying, it's not just the tech skills that we want people to have, right? It's a broad base of knowledge, including soft skills and critical thinking and reading and all of that, right? So it's definitely been heard that there's a concern about how each of the separate schools, colleges, discipline areas are going to be treated. And this is just a way for us to reiterate that we're hearing you, and it's all being incorporated into the synthesis process. So it's great that we're hearing from people, and we want to continue to hear from you. And particularly if you have thoughts around how particular areas are giving you different skills, then that would be great to know. Marketing, again, no surprise, came up again. That's something that now you're seeing from the feedback in all constituent groups. Partnerships with organizations. So the web and email submissions are aligned pretty directly with the discussions that we're hearing, and I think that this goes back to the Chancellor's point about, at a certain point you start to get a clear message of what's happening in a particular situation. And then we did hear that, the website can be a challenge. Lots of reactions in the room. That's great to know that we're right on point there, but it tells your story, right? If at the beginning we're hearing that telling the story is a challenge, then we want to think about how the website can be a tool to also tell that story well, accurately, in a timely way, because that not only feeds prospective students, but it also feeds our colleagues across the country, people seeking out researchers and experts to come and speak to their campuses, so there are lots of ways that comes to play. And then finally, for our engagement, the surveys that we administered. And you can see on here that there are a number of programs that are highlighted that should be invested in, but also, the engagement piece was clear on the surveys as well. So again, we will leave you with this, but there's one or two more points that I want to make. There was something really interesting, and you think about things that you hear in a focus group or in an interview that should just stick with you, right? So one person in particular said, we always hear people say go blue, right? And I'm sure we've all in this room, myself included, our other colleague, Jonathan, who's also a Michigan alum, included, we all have heard that refrain. We've sung the fight song. But this person said, we should also say go Flint. And so, and it just stuck with me. This was weeks ago, but it stuck with me. And so I think that as we think about the Michigan difference, as we think about what makes UM-Flint unique amongst the Michigan system, why would people want to come here? Why do they want to stay here? And how can we bolster that up? Hopefully we'll get to the point where we're all saying go blue and go Flint. So with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Nick, and he will walk us through market analysis.
Can you hear me? Hello? I realize this deck is stacked against me. I'm the only Huron attendee today who does not have a U of M credential. And I have to talk to you about market analysis in a dark room on a Friday morning. So I hope you're ready. All right, so just a brief background before we dive into some of the data points and the trends we've identified about what market analysis is and what it isn't. It is a tool that lets you see the landscape around you. It's an external lens that helps you understand some trends and how you can align with those trends to achieve a goal. It's not a set of answers, at least not yet. Market analysis has to be brought to bear on other factors before it can start to generate things that look like answers. So we're going to talk about some things today that help paint that picture of the landscape in which U of M-Flint sits and how it can have an impact on that landscape. But we're not at the point in the process yet where things have been synthesized and where we have answers. So let's keep that in mind as we move through some of this content and as we ask questions about it too, as I think the questions that we have are really important, and sharing those questions with us through the channels that exist and have been provided is a really great way for us to deepen our analysis and to better understand what kinds of data, what kinds of information, what kinds of trends we should be looking for so that we can best paint that picture to be useful to the university in this process. So we're going to look at 4 or 5 different areas of data, depending on how you chunk it. The first is student demand. Student demand shows us what students want, and we look at conferral trends to see that. So what kinds of students, what kinds of programs are students enrolling in? Where are those trends over 5 years, 6 years showing increasing student interest, and where are those trends showing decreasing student interest? We also look at employer demand. Where do employers want more students? Where do they want more graduates? Where do they have talent shortages? And when we look at those two things together, we can see something called demand intensity. Where are there the most job openings for in fields and the least graduates? In other words, where are market gaps? And that space is really where an institution can have an incredible impact, not only for workforce needs, but for individuals, for social mobility, for economic mobility. So it's that combination of student demand and employer demand which gives us a sense of the optimal zones of opportunity for an institution to at least begin to think about when you think about that future portfolio. And right now, both of those areas are aligning around technology, business, health, allied health, and professions and occupations throughout those fields. So again, to harken back to Gina's point, this means that while graduates with degrees along those lines are in high demand, it's also critical that folks who enter those fields have the essential skills to lead teams, to be creative, to be entrepreneurial. So again, this is painting a picture based on how we see actors in the market behaving. It's not providing answers about exactly what path forward we should take at this time. We're also going to look at, I can't see, the demographic landscape. Demographics are shifting all throughout the United States. And so what we've done is look at the demographics locally, Genesee County and the surrounding 15 counties, in the state, and regionally, Michigan and the surrounding 5 states in the Great Lakes region. In each of these areas, demographics are shifting significantly. I mean, I think we're all probably aware of the demographic cliff. You've heard about the demographic cliff? Yeah. So what this means for most institutions all around the country, but particularly for institutions in this region, in this state, is that the population of 18 to 22-year-olds is shrinking. The population of people who may need lifelong learning, people who are over the age of 25 and want to advance in their careers, that population is increasing. At the same time, we're seeing fields where workforce is growing, moving from a field where having an associate's degree might have been all right a while ago to really needing a bachelor's degree to advance in a field. So there are a couple of shifts going on in terms of what levels of education are needed, how frequently someone may need to upskill in order to stay relevant, in order to advance, and a change in the age of the demographics around us that paint a picture about what kinds of programs to offer and how to offer them, what kind of audiences we want to serve, and what those learners' unique needs are. When we think about, people who are working, who have families, versus people who can stop out and take 2 years off to get a master's degree or 4 years off to get a bachelor's degree. We also look at the competitive landscape. This is essential. It's important, especially for an institution who has goals related to economic development, social mobility, to understand what's already being done well, and where there are gaps between what's not being done or what's not being done well enough, particularly for a public institution. So understanding where students are already being served, where employment needs are already being served is critical. It allows an institution not only to understand where a program may be able to grow, but also where a program isn't going to be redundant. So if we think about really important professions to overall social good like education, like health, it's that alignment with the broader competitive landscape that is as important as understanding where there might be a market opportunity. And then finally, we also have begun to look at the integration of our findings through market analysis with the context that we've gained through stakeholder engagement. And so thanks to the work of the steering committee, thanks to the work of the ITAC, many of whom I see here today, and I appreciate all the work you've done and really thank you for your ongoing and deep engagement with this process, as well as the many others who've submitted comments in focus groups, through the website. This is critical context that actually lets us start to make something of these trends that we've identified through market analysis, which without this context can only be so meaningful. So we've begun to look at areas where there are specific ideas, suggestions, trends already within the Flint community, efforts underway that align with the market. So we're going to jump in pretty quickly to each of these 4 areas. We're going to combine student demand and employer demand to look just at demand intensity for a minute, and then we'll tick through each of the remaining 3. As a way to explain how we use these concepts, there wouldn't be enough time. You'd have to give you a terribly boring lecture to walk through how each of these factors gets looked at through each program lens, and we only have about 10 more minutes for this section. So we're going to instead talk about how we think about each of these with application to a specific sector where it's the most interesting. So in terms of market analysis of student and employer demand, what you see on this slide is in each area, the highest demand professions at the bachelor's level, meaning fields that require a bachelor's degree, and then the demand intensity in that field, and below it you see the same thing in the master's market. The highest demand occupations at the master's level, jobs that require a master's degree, and demand intensity. Demand intensity means, pretty plainly, the number of graduates you see compared to the number of jobs in a field. And so what does this tell us? It tells us that, what we said earlier, there's really intense demand from employers for professionals, for new professionals in technology, health, and business fields in a number of places. And there aren't enough graduates. There are many jobs, many job openings, and the landscape is still not producing enough talent. So if an institution wants to grow, if an institution wants to solve a workforce need, address a workforce need, if an institution wants to provide economic and social mobility, these are the fields that are best positioned to do that right now. Again, demographics. Here what you see is the fact that it's played out in data, the trend that we just discussed, that there is a shrinking 18 to 22-year-old population. There's a growing population of people 25 plus. And here we're zoning in on the associate degree market. Why are we zoning in on that? Because in many fields, associate degrees are no longer sufficient for either breaking into a field or advancing in a field. And so when we think about the opportunities that suggests for any institution, it raises the prospect of focusing in on the associate's degrees in a field that are best aligned to what the workforce needs are. And so almost half, about 40% of associate degrees earned in the state are earned in business, health, technology, engineering, and related fields. These are fields where people really need to get bachelor's degrees to continue to grow. These are increasingly technical fields, and the associate degree is maybe used to be good enough to break in, to grow. Now that you have to plus up to a bachelor's degree. So the market suggests that there's a strong opportunity for an institution like Flint to help those people. There are 30,000 in the last 5 years alone who have earned associate degrees in this field. There are 300,000 regionally who may be seeking to plus up from an associate degree and a bachelor's degree in this field. It's a large market opportunity, and it would strongly promote social and economic mobility in addition to being a sustainable and viable approach for an institution to undertake, particularly if we think about those learners who may want to access their learning through online modalities, who may want to access learning in a hybrid format where there's only some in-person components, who may want work experience to be a part of their degree program and to be able to earn credit for that work experience. So it begins to paint a picture of the kinds of programs that you could think about serving these audience with. It doesn't tell you exactly what program or exactly how to do it, but it starts to show you the landscape and its contours so that you can position the university in the best way to achieve its goals. The competitor landscape is also critical to look at in each area of programming, really specifically at each area of programming. And so an interesting area for us to look at least initially, is to understand how competitive landscape and go-to-market considerations can be assessed, is in the fields of nursing and health sciences. These are very crowded fields, very competitive fields, where you see a lot of market actors competing for the same talent, sometimes not to the actual benefit of the ecosystem overall, if we're not creating enough new professionals in the fields, if we're not creating enough new nurses. So the alignment across comparators in this space is really important. So in nursing, for example, you see a tremendous amount of differentiation of products. You see accelerated programs, you see discounted programs, you see stackable programs, you see programs that try to make it as easy as possible for a student to say yes to a particular institution. And so you are actually starting to see some programs like at Wayne State, which I wouldn't consider necessarily a comparator in terms of students competed for Flint, but nonetheless is an example of someone who's doing something interesting in the nursing space and can be learned from. They're differentiating their nursing curriculum around urban nursing and urban health. And so that kind of, and they're appealing to a very specific student population that has that idea in mind. They want to have an impact on a certain population, and they know if they go there, they're going to have a certain kind of learning experience. That's an example of how you can differentiate at a curriculum level to tell a different kind of story about your program and appeal to a different kind of market in a nuanced way. So it's a good example of how any institution can think about differentiating in multiple ways. We usually think about going online. We usually think about offering stackable certificates. There are other components of go-to-market strategies that can have a real impact on the ability to reach a population, on the ability to grow, and to do that again in a way that's sustainable and that has an impact socially and in terms of economic mobility. And then also in the area of health sciences and allied health professions. Suddenly in the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen really significant growth in exercise and kinesiology, exercise science and kinesiology. What does this mean? It means that there's significant student interest here. The job market is lagging a little bit behind. So it's an area where you want to closely watch the competitive landscape to see, is this trend going to play out? Is it worth investing in? Because we're seeing a large demand from students over the last several years, perhaps due to broader cultural trends with respect to health and wellness. But is it going to play out in terms of continued growth, continued sustainability over time? So it's an area where watching the competitive landscape becomes interesting because you can see if it's an area that's worth investing in long term. And then finally, in the last couple of minutes we have here, I just wanted to touch on some of the ways we're beginning to integrate the Flint context that we've learned through stakeholder engagement with some of the market analysis findings that have emerged in these early days. So one of the most prominent fields of growth overall is in health. Of course, there's nursing, but there's also the allied health professions. Everybody who's not a nurse or a doctor, but is nonetheless critical to the provision of care and the clinical operations. These are fast-growing fields, and in places like the therapies, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech-language pathology, these are really important and growing areas that the University of Michigan at Flint is extremely well positioned to serve, because it's the only U of M school that's really devoted to the allied health professions. And that is a critical differentiator and early strength to be leveraged by the university to really position itself as the leader in this space for the local area, for the state, and for the region. There's also a tremendous amount of interest, and we know that's very impactful for learners, to engage in experiential learning through service learning, through internships, through co-ops. The community all around the university is the living laboratory for this work. The ability to have student workers participating in the development of new businesses, to be working in nonprofit settings, to be working in government settings, these are tremendously valuable learning experiences that are also really supportive of economic development goals, and also solve or also help a university align itself, and would help the university, U of M-Flint, align itself with the many organizations throughout the community who are doing excellent work. So just by going a bit outside the borders of the campus and partnering with these organizations to provide learning experiences that are directly related to degree programs is a huge opportunity. And I'm not going to say untapped, because I know there's a ton going on. And that's one of the other things we've learned through stakeholder engagement. There's a lot of activity going on around experiential learning, service learning, and it's about capturing that, enabling it, and telling the story that really might take it to the next level. And as Gina mentioned, through stakeholder engagement, we heard a lot about the value of, I hate the term soft skills, as someone who was a political science major and went to law school. I feel like my skills aren't that soft, but a lot of emphasis on the need to be a team player, the need to lead, to think creatively, to solve problems, to be an entrepreneur, to have empathy, things that can't be automated, the kinds of jobs that AI is not going to take over in 5 years or 10 years. These are the critical skills that are often delivered through a liberal arts education or something that isn't technical education. I had a friend of mine who was a dean of a computer science school who made all her students take an improv class. Now, if you can imagine what a class full of computer science students in improv looks like, there are some YouTube videos. You will find it, and it's very interesting. But it had a tremendous impact on them. It had a tremendous impact on just getting them to come out of their shells and to engage with each other as humans. It took on a new dimension. It helped them take on a new dimension and understand their computer science education through a different lens. So it's that fusion of the technical and the non-technical that really unlocks a student's potential. And there perhaps is no institution more focused on unlocking students' potential than U of M-Flint, based on the student population you serve and the audiences that you've long supported. And this is really a place that transforms lives. And that integration of the technical and the non-technical is a powerful tool to continue to do that. And then finally, as with many institutions, the university is experimenting in lots of ways with differentiated offerings. And there are a couple I'd like to highlight, because these are things we would not have learned but for our extensive stakeholder engagement so far. And we'll learn more as we continue that. And so in the education space, for example, we all know there's a tremendous shortage in Michigan for teachers right now. Well, there's an interim teacher certification program at the master's level at this university, and it's the only such program in the state. And it's differentiated in a few important ways. One, it provides that master's level credential, which is really important for compensation, which can make teaching a really valuable prospect to people. When teaching right now is not a valuable prospect to a lot of people because of the lower pay and the high stress. And so it's differentiating against the real problem. It's actually affecting the problem, making it a faster route to being in the classroom as a teacher, and providing you with that potential for higher compensation. So really smart move, and it's already here at Flint, and it's already positioned to make a difference. Another is in psychology. Psychology is an area that has declined at the state, locally, nationally. Psychology degrees are really not doing well, along with a number of other degree programs that you might consider historically, traditionally strong. Well, here at Flint, it's been growing. And it's been growing because it was moved online by an entrepreneurial group of faculty who really were able to make the program stand out in a landscape where psychology programs are not well differentiated. So there's already the seeds of the innovation and the entrepreneurship that can make an institution successful. Our goal is to help identify those, to help build them up as much as possible, and to make the institution as well positioned to achieve its goals in terms of serving its students and the broader community. So that's what market analysis has showed us so far, and it's going to be that integration of what we're hearing from you all through the stakeholder engagement that's going to really bring it to life in terms of real options and potential answers for the future. I'm going to turn it back to the Chancellor for questions.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Gina. So we'll get into the Q&A session, and I'm looking at the time. This was slated for 10 to 11, but I do want to make sure that we can answer as many questions as we can. So we will run this until 11:10, just to get you enough opportunities. And if there are questions beyond this, please email us through the website. This presentation will be on the website. So based on what you heard today and what you analyzed based on the slides, have any questions, please send it to us. Or you come to my office hours, happy to talk to you, and we'll try to sort it out. So with that, it's extra 10 minutes if needed. All right. If we have any questions, please come to the podium here, and folks on the platform or the ITAC and the steering committee will help answer. Okay, thank you very much. No, just kidding. I know it is finals week, last day of classes, so many things on your mind, but folks, if you have any questions, comments. Yes, please. It'll be good if you introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Sami Katob. I'm a political science major. It's also my first semester here at the University of Michigan-Flint. And based on the market analysis that's been shown by Huron and previous slides showing that liberal arts majors want to play a supporting role to more in-demand majors like business and technology, my question is, going forward, will liberal arts majors and degree programs be reinvented in a way where they play a side role to technology and business majors?
That the question?
Yes.
We don't know that yet, okay? What Huron is helping us doing with the input from the faculty, staff, and students is giving us some trends, right? It will be, as I said at the very beginning on September 23rd, our decision to make sense of that and decide where the investments will be and how we will move forward. So we haven't made that decision because the project is still incomplete, but you will be involved as I come to the student government and I see you there, and I'll see with the town halls. So we'll take all input and then we'll make a decision. At this point, we haven't.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Any other questions and comments? I also want to acknowledge here that in my office hours, I've had faculty members, so tenure track as well as lecturers. And I have really enjoyed the conversations with the lecturers because they bring a set of issues that are rather unique. So I appreciate that, and I want to encourage all of you to bring your issues forward. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes, please. If you would introduce yourself and then.
Yeah, my name is Kwamrul Mazumdar. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering. So the chart was very interesting. I think this is not surprising. We already knew that some of the things have been discussed over years. So few things I am specifically looking at is the graduate program and international recruitment, which I've been involved from CIT for last few months. There is a very high demand also from international students' side for STEM discipline. Then I don't know you have looked at it or not. And two of the graduate program, there are 5 graduate programs listed as high demand. 2 are in engineering, mechanical engineering and industrial engineering, which is one of my areas. And I think it will help us serving the local industry. The automotive industry is going very high tech. They're doing a lot of R&D with autonomous vehicle. They're looking for skill beyond bachelor level. They're hiring a lot of PhD and graduate students. So that will help us 2 ways: increasing recruitment, increasing our enrollment from international local students, and also serving the technologically driven Southwest Michigan auto industry. So I don't know how we can implement it, and that is really very important. So I don't have a question. This is my comment.
Thank you for your comment. And as you said, and as you heard from Huron, so these trends will emerge. We will note it. And then, as I said to Sammy, it is an institutional decision where we invest, at what scale we invest, and over what timeline we invest. So we will have to look at that, and we will. Yeah. Any other? Yes, please. So actually, I mean, you don't have to raise your hand. If you have a question, please just line up there. It'll be simpler, faster, but.
I feel like the other side of the room you're neglecting.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to turn my back on you. That's how it is positioned, but yes.
So
my apologies. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm Jacob Lumner. I'm the Writing Center Director on campus. And so it seems that much of this analysis is really focused, employer-focused. And I'm curious how this analysis and thinking about this process is considering things like the role of civic engagement, particularly with the rise of extremism and fascism that's going on right now in the country, and how you and Huron and the committee are thinking about how that fits into the larger educational mission of this institution.
Do you want to? So, yeah, go. Well, okay, so this is very important, okay? This is obviously not going to show up in the employer demand market analysis, but not to say for sure. People who are in the corporations, they are fully aware of the social issues that the country is facing and how it impacts their profitability. They are fully aware. So I would not be surprised if it shows up. But what you're saying, Jacob, it goes to the values of the institution that we will have to protect and enhance. So as I said from the very beginning, Huron is not making any decisions. Huron is giving us certain trends, and then we will consider those trends, and collectively we will make decisions about where to invest. For example, I'll go out on a limb to say we might invest in areas that Huron will indicate is not a wise investment. But that is because we are an institution, we are a part of U of M, and there are values that we will want to protect. So, but don't take my comment out of context. I'm just saying these decisions will have to be made, and I hope we will all come together as a campus to make these and make the sacrifices and the tough decisions that we need to make for the best of the institution. But if Huron folks want to say anything, if you are here, yeah, go ahead.
I would just add to that answer in one respect that one of the trends we have identified from employers is the desire for that skill set to be able to work in a team, to be creative, to be empathetic. Those are skills that require cultural agility, that require the ability to relate to other people and to understand them, that require the ability to see disparate pieces of information and to make sense of it. All those skills help us discern what's misinformation from what's not misinformation, what's demagoguery from what's not. And so they're applicable, of course, in the workplace context for a specific employer end, but they also just make us able to be good citizens. So there's a dual effect, and yes, the analysis is focused on what employers need, but I think that also, that skill set also does prepare people to confront a wide variety of challenges.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Labby, a professor of sociology. I'm a little curious about the data, so I'm wondering which employers were asking questions of, what kinds of questions we're asking, how they're being identified. And then I'm also curious about how community is being defined, how many, like, who is the community outside of the university that we're talking with? You know, how wide is that reach, and how many people, and what kinds of spaces?
Sure. I think in the appendix, the information that will be posted, you will see the full list of companies and community. I don't think you will see names, right? No. Yeah, but that list is there. It is quite extensive. But if I'm reading something into your question, that is where all the companies or organizations or community members that you think should have been included, you let us know. We got this from the feedback based on the web input, from economic development, from Philip Thompson, and so we reached out to those. But if you think there are other organizations for us to reach out to, other people, you let us know.
So the list of organizations will be included in the appendix?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. My name is Julie Ellis. I am a freshman in my first semester here at UM-Flint. I'm a political science major. With my limited understanding of market analysis thus far, the information presented has been easy enough to follow. What did interest me was the decision to distance ourselves from Ann Arbor throughout this process, and I wanted to ask what the thought process was on that.
What do you mean distance us from Ann Arbor?
You mentioned before that we had some help from departments at Ann Arbor throughout this process, and we decided to take a step back from their opinions and help in this process.
No. Okay, I did not express myself correctly. We had advisors from the CFO's office and a former CFO by the name of Tim Slaughter. They were there initially because this project was being framed. Now, late October, it is completely U of M-Flint. That doesn't mean Ann Arbor is disconnected. Ann Arbor is fully connected. They are financially supporting us. So for example, the administrative staff support for this project is a person by the name of Stephanie Alexander. Maybe several of you have received emails. She is with me. Nobody from my office is supporting this effort. Stephanie Alexander is funded by Ann Arbor. So I just want to make it clear that Ann Arbor people and others are not making decisions about this project. They will at some point when the financial issues will come into play. How much of investment, where, then obviously the person or the entity that is investing will want to know. So at that time. That said, in my meetings with the president, I keep him fully appraised. In my meetings with the regents, I keep them fully appraised. So,
Okay, thank you so much.
thank you.
Hello, Chancellor. My name is Alicia Washington. I'm a political science student here on campus. Thank you for having us all here today. I wanted to say a comment. I held this in my hand today. This past weekend, we had 3 teams go to the Great Lakes Regional Moot Court competition that took place in Saginaw Valley State. And we were able to make it to the Sweet 16. We had the opportunity to beat Yale. We had the opportunity to showcase what our university and our program could do. We had the opportunity to show these very big Ivy League schools the power of this campus. But the concern that I have is whether or not this program is still going to be here. The concern that I have is whether the faculty of my program is still going to be here. And that's the thing that worries me. That's the thing that concerns me and concerns a lot of individuals in this room and concerns individuals outside of this room. We see this market analysis. We see the numbers that are presented. But what we don't hear is any type of reassurance that although, yes, it cultivates the community, although it cultivates and it's nice on campus, does the campus care enough to keep it here? When we know its value, when we know the amount and the quality of students that it creates, sir. So I come up here as a representative of my program, of the School of Arts and Sciences, the College of Arts and Sciences, because it matters just as much as the tech schools, and it matters just as much as any other school. And so we ask for this body that is making these decisions to consider the value of this. My school matters, I matter, my work matters, and when I graduate, that degree should matter too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name
Good
is
morning.
My name is Kayla Buby. I'm our lead staff member and counselor within our CAPS office here on campus, and I'm a clinical social worker. And I wanted to make a comment and maybe a bit of a case for a focus on mental health professions and our allied health conversations as well. We do not currently have an MSW program here. We are connected to a campus that has the best clinical social work program for master's level social workers in the country. This field is growing. It's a significant area. Certainly you all know this. And there's both state and national funding that's being put towards this. There's conversations with the Surgeon General about mental health concerns. How do we focus on this? We're working with an upcoming generation of students and people who are destigmatizing mental health at a rate that we love to see but can't keep up with. And so I just wanted to kind of make the case for that a little bit. I'll be the first to tell everybody here that mental health concerns on this campus is something that our office deals with directly, and we're having a hard enough time keeping up. The rest of the world is too. And so I just wanted to make sure that that conversation was front and center. Also, in thinking about these allied health professions, these are all health professions that need continuing education. And so this is an opportunity for us to really invest in that process of lifelong learning for these different professions, and really give them a chance to continue their connection to UM-Flint and really bring those folks after they graduate back to us for some increased income on their end and ours, and really helping them continue that journey in their life and their career. So wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comment. So we have reached 11:10. I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you during your very busy schedules to attend the workshop, the town hall. I want to make sure that I thank the ITAC and the steering committee for the good work that they are doing. It is intense, it is busy, so I very much appreciate it. And would you please all join me in thanking our partners from Huron in this very important work. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.